Okay, guys. So, good evening, good morning, based on whatever region you are in. And Aman is going to be joining very soon. So, this is actually super random. I don't have any particular topics that I have already planned. But yes, some of the topics are out of the top of my head. Whatever I remember, we're just going to talk about it. I'm going to ask Aman certain questions. Meanwhile, people who are here, can you let me know if I am audible, if I'm loud enough? Surprisingly, I'm getting more viewers compared to any other day. I don't know if it is because of the time that we have chosen for this particular live session, or if it is because Aman is going to be joining me. All right, all right. Okay, thank you, Charanya. Thank you, Deepak. All right, thanks, Payal. Okay, so okay, so Aman just texted me saying that he's ready, and let's see, he'll join anytime. Okay, view request.
Hey, Melvin, what's up?
All good, buddy. All good. Dinner done.
No, man. You know me. So, dinner's just kind of arrived now, but I just finished a training session and we got some kombucha, man. I tried a little kombucha and I was like, man, I don't feel like eating anything now. That's Yash, by the way. Yash, say hi.
Hi, Yash.
Uh, so, Yash is having the kombucha. Um, I don't think he can hear you because you're connected to the headset. But Yash is enjoying his dinner. I'm just waiting for that kombucha to settle, man.
What shit is that? I mean, I have never heard of that. What is that?
So, so I was recently introduced to it. I was traveling and I I ate something, man. I was like, man, I was sensitive tummy anyway. So my partner, she's like, yo, try this, try kombucha. It's a fermented beverage. It's labeled as a probiotic. I was like, cool, I'll try it, man. What's the harm? Okay. And it seemed to help. I'm not going to attribute any magical properties to it, but it seemed to do the trick. So I'm like, Yash had some nasty salad with sake in the afternoon. So he came back. He's like, man, I'm not feeling too good. So I gave him some peppermint oil. Now he's having some kombucha. So yeah.
You come home someday, man. I'll cook something, South Indianish kind of a thing for you, which has everything. It has like probiotics, anti-inflammatories, you name it. You have all kinds of micros in it. I mean, have you heard of this particular food called more from Kerala?
No.
It's like a curry only, but then there are many things like ginger, garlic, a lot of little things that is amazing for your health. So
Understood.
just give me a minute. Let me just switch off the fan. I mean, I can't hear you properly.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so people are really excited. People are expecting that we are going to bring some damage. I don't know what are people expecting. I mean, the moment I came
Okay.
live, I had almost like 20-25 viewers at the moment, and I was like, is it because of the time that we chose to come live, or is it because me and Aman are coming together? So
It's the latter.
yeah. All right. So okay. So Aman, I really don't have anything planned as such. But then whatever comes to my mind, we are going to discuss about that. Okay.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah.
And some people are already asking questions, but guys, just hold on for some time. We'll answer your questions once we finish our discussion. Okay. So Aman, yes.
Yeah,
So my
sure.
first question, or rather something that I really want to discuss with you about, is this question that comes to my mind all the time: how evidence-based is really the evidence-based fitness industry? fitness community.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
is your take on this?
man. So I've spoken about this ad nauseum, okay? The thing with the evidence-based fitness industry um, is that it isn't really evidence-based, okay? Just because you can share a few studies, okay, try and support, you attempt to support your stance with a research paper or maybe multiple research papers, does not mean you understand the subject well. Now, see, um, the evidence-based community largely comes from the West. Okay, um, the difference in education in the West versus what we kind of emphasize here in India is that we really emphasize a firm. Our teachers ask us to develop a firm understanding of conceptual subject matter first. Okay,
Right.
so it's like the common saying which goes मास्टर द बेसिक्स मास्टर द बेसिक्स स्टडी द बेसिक अगर आपको कॉन्सेप्ट आ गया तो आप उसके आगे कुछ भी समझ सकते हैं
True.
राइट so there's a heavy emphasis on concepts on sciences which are incredibly well established. So you can think for example Newton's laws. Now we know that okay, Einstein came along and things kind of shifted, but for the most part that's an excellent model. Newton's laws are an excellent model to predict what happens in the universe. Okay, so we rely on that to this very day. It's the certainty which we have with regards to Newton's laws is pretty concrete. Obviously, there's nothing which is concrete. Okay, it's not like that. There's a well-established truth which cannot be shaken. Science is always a floating entity. Okay, we know there are some things which we know with a great degree of certainty, some things which we don't know with a great degree of certainty, but that's the best we know. So we have to rely on that. In the West, there's a different sort of a culture when it comes to education. It's a heavy emphasis on empirical evidence, which means that if you have a theory, you must support it with some data, which makes sense, right? Because I can hypothesize that, okay, if I drop this object, it must fall down.
Yeah.
And it seems very obvious that, oh, of course, man, it has to fall down. But if it doesn't fall down, if I conduct an experiment and if this guy doesn't fall down, then I have to revise my theory. Okay, we are on planet Earth, so cool.
Yeah.
It's falling down. But if I'm on some other planet, it may not fall down. Or at least it may not fall down at the rate at which it's currently falling down.
True.
So, so the West has this heavy emphasis on empirical evidence, which I get. Okay, you can theorize all you want, but at the end of the day, empirical evidence is everything. The problem is, if you just focus on the empirical evidence and you forget that well-established scientific concepts were also established by empirical evidence, but you don't want to touch on those because they are like news of the old, then that becomes a problem. So in the fitness industry, what we notice is we notice research being published. Every month there'll be some study which will be published, and there's pressure. Okay, for any academic, for any yeah, Melvin, I lost you there for a bit. Yeah. So there's a little pressure. There's a little peer pressure. There's a little publication pressure. So they'll be like, okay, cool. We'll perform a squat versus hip thrust study, or we compare these two approaches. Okay, let's compare rep speeds. Man, but if you fundamentally don't understand what actually happens when you change the rep speed, if you don't understand inertia, if you don't understand foundational mechanics, how are you going to compare a squat and a hip thrust? You're going to start by asking the wrong question. And if you ask the wrong question, you'll always land up on the wrong answer.
Yeah.
So my first exposure to the fitness industry was obviously from the West, because I was like, man, these people are really cool. The evidence-based community, we have our evidence-based heroes. Let's see what they have to offer. I learned quite a bit from them. But then slowly but surely I realized that they are not as evidence-based as they claim to be. There are some foundational concepts which they simply do not understand. And if you don't understand those concepts, you cannot talk about the subject which you claim to be an expert in.
Right. Okay. And Aman, I have this understanding regarding um, how researches are conducted. Okay. So let's say that a particular research is being conducted. Okay. The amount of subjects that can be studied in that particular setup is obviously limited. Okay, maybe you can study 100 people, 200 people, 300 people, and on the basis of that they draw a conclusion with respect to that particular hypothesis, whatever they were trying to prove, right or wrong. All right.
Yeah.
Now my argument to all the researchers, whether it is already a well established concept or whether it is an ongoing study or okay, people are saying that my voice is quite low. Is it fine now? Can you hear me, Aman?
I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, okay. So I
Yeah.
was saying that there are a limited number of people that you can study a particular hypothesis on. Okay. Now let's say the world has 7 billion people. All right. Now, among these 7 billion people, if we are conducting a research study on 200 people, 300 people, or 500 people max, okay, what is the percentage of people that we are studying on actually, right? And whether this conclusion applies to everybody on the planet. This is something that I've already always been thinking of, because whatever research we come across, for example, I'll give you a simple example, okay? Um, Now we have this weird concept of training volume, training frequency, and all of these things. All right.
Yeah.
Now, I guess this was popularized via Eric Helm's book, Training Pyramid, that you need to have a
Yeah.
certain volume throughout the week. You need to train twice a
Yeah.
week, and you should not train. You should not train your muscles every single day. All of these concepts, okay? But you remember we had this discussion that back when I
Yeah.
was back when I was doing football or I was doing martial arts, we used to train
Yeah.
that same muscle every single day. Okay, whether it's your
Yeah.
calves, whether it's your push-ups, whether it's whatever kind of muscle, chest, back, all kind of muscle, we used to train
Yeah.
in and out every single day. Okay,
Yeah.
if we go by this particular logic or this particular conclusion that people have come to with all the research, that you should only train 2 times a week or you should have a certain training volume, you should not train beyond 30, 40 sets per week, don't you think that
Yeah.
is very biased in itself?
See, Melvin, see, if we rely on that argument, then we're going to have to dismiss research as a whole. The endeavor of conducting scientific evidence, the limitation is that you can only work with a certain number of people at a time.
Right.
Okay, and the assumption is that okay, a particular sample, okay, will have enough similarities, physiological similarities, and of course, he has Homo sapiens. There are a lot of physiological similarities. Like you and me are different, of course,
Yeah.
but we probably have more in common physiologically than we have not in common.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is the fundamental assumption that let's say we are more or less the same age, and let's say if you are part of the scientific trial, in all likelihood, your outcome, or let's say your outcome, averaged with the outcome of the other people in that subset who share similar traits as you, will more or less largely apply to me as well. Now, of course, there are always outliers. Okay, some people do not respond, but we basically try and we try and set some general guidelines via research. Okay, that generally speaking, on average,
Right.
this is what seems to work.
Mm-hmm.
So the conclusions are tentative when
Tentative, yes.
research is conducted on, let's say, frequency or volume, and that's something which most authors try and propagate. Unfortunately, a lot of people kind of take that and consider it gospel, and they're like, "Oh, look, Eric Helms said this," when Eric Helms actually did not say that. He actually presented a more nuanced, tentative suggestion. But then fanboys tend to take it to another extreme.
Right.
But the problem with this is there are problems with studies which test for volume. Okay, the way volume is calculated is childish to say the least. Okay, we have a very an incredibly baby man understanding of how we calculate volume. It's a silly, arbitrary formula: sets times reps times load.
Yeah.
Come on, man. And that's a huge problem. Perhaps the topic for another day. I have an entire lecture on this, but that's not how you calculate work done. That's a very poor approach at
If
calculating
I'm
work
not
done.
wrong, then we have a very clear-cut formula that is force into displacement, right? That is work done or power.
That's work. Or standard displacement is work. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, now, yeah, you got that. Okay, fine. Mechanical work is calculated like that.
Yeah.
But things get a little more complicated when we are in this sort of a situation. So how we kind of bring those enterprises together and truly find out, okay, what sort of volume or what sort of stimulus our muscles are truly being exposed to in this given situation.
Yeah.
Okay, how are the reps being performed? Okay, there's so much. So we need to be a little more refined in our approach when we speak about volume. We also have to take into consideration that volume and frequency are not separate;
Separate. No.
they're linked. Okay,
Frequency is largely
uh,
determined by the total volume that you plan to perform throughout the week. Correct?
exactly, and of course, and they are interrelated. Okay, sometimes if you just subtly increase your frequency, you can increase your volume. So, these are things which you need to think about, but you need to start by first establishing some strong fundamentals. Okay. We can't start talking about exercise if we don't understand force.
True.
We can't. And largely speaking, you can't start even talking about volume if you don't understand mechanical work. Um, there are some realities which we first need to establish, some fundamentals we need to first establish. Then we can start asking the right questions, and then the likelihood that we'll stumble upon the right answer increases.
Right. Okay. And okay, now there is something interesting which I want to ask you. I remember reading one article by Menno. Okay. And this article mentioned the correct way of training your calves for growth. Okay. Now, certain fundamentals are right. I won't disagree there. Okay. He mentions that your gastrocnemius is largely type 2 fibers and your soleus is largely type 1 fibers, endurance fibers. So you need more repetition range for the endurance fibers versus the your hypertrophic fibers. Okay. Now, in one of your videos which you did for Daman Singh, you had mentioned that calves actually get trained outside the gym more than you train them inside the gym, which is very true, because when you're walking, when you're running, when you're climbing stairs, whatever you do, your calves are throughout the day. If you're standing, your calves are working, right? So you said that if you really want to grow your calf muscles and you have that potential of slow growth, then you are better off training it every single day or multiple times a week, more than 2-3 times a week. All right.
Yeah.
So could you just share your thoughts on this particular topic? Because I get a lot of people who say that calves are mainly genetic. People who are living in the mountains will have bigger calves, and people who are living in the plateaus will not have bigger calves. So what is the logic
Come
behind
on.
this?
Come on, man. Okay, think a little bit. Okay, why do people in the mountains have bigger calves? They're in the mountains and they're exposed to the mountains, and their calves are exposed to terrain. Okay, come on, man. See, I'll just refine my point a little bit. See, of course, we have to take into consideration that a lot of people live sedentary lifestyles. Okay, so a lot of people don't walk or they don't use the stairs. Um, so for them, a little exposure to the gym is great. But a lot of people are also overweight. They're obese. And imagine them carrying all that body weight, okay, all that fat. Even if they take a few steps a day, their plantar flexing against significant resistance.
True.
Okay. So, and we see this all the time. You've obviously experienced this with your weight loss clients. Someone who's lost a substantial amount of weight, they may seem to have lost a lot of muscle, or if you've trained them well, then okay, they have some muscle mass here. But if you look down, someone who's lost a lot of weight, someone who was obese, and now that person is lean, you look at their calves and you'll be like, wow,
Yeah, true.
hey, there's some serious calf development.
Yeah.
So, and again, see, I never understood this. Okay, a lot of times I've tried and explained this to people, and then I realized that people don't get it. Okay, people don't get the idea that we are constantly experiencing force and we are constantly fighting force. Okay. People have this concept of force being a lot. Okay. Well, they feel that, okay, when we go to the gym, we are exposed to a lot of force and a lot of force which we need. Heavy weights is what we need for to stimulate muscle growth. Man, I had nothing in the way of low body development post COVID. People keep asking, how do you have awesome quad, glute, and hamstring development? How are your calves so jacked? I've been playing football. I, I don't have time to squat and deadlift, man, because if I do that, I won't be able to play football the next morning. So, oh, but how is football helping you build muscle? Come on, man. That's why you need to understand force.
Correct.
Okay. So look at cyclists. Okay, lot of people. If you're experiencing force and somewhat creating a good environment for positive adaptations to occur, you will build muscle. Okay, so that's the first thing that a lot of people are already exposing their plantar flexors to a lot of resistance over the course of the day. Now, if you take that same person and if you make them train their calves once a day, or rather once a week, that's a problem. Twice a week may not be enough because those guys are used to taking a beating. They're used to working every single day. They carry almost their entire body weight. So now then we have to ask the questions. Okay, that's a well-conditioned muscle. That muscle can take a beating.
Right.
Maybe twice a week isn't good enough. Perhaps you need to think thrice, 4 times a week, maybe every day, maybe twice a day, every single day.
Okay.
I have my clients who struggle with calf development. I have them work their calves twice a day, every single day, and they're all like, man, calves are so genetic. I'm like, keep quiet, man. Let me take care of things. Okay. And now they're training their calves frequently. Yeah, they were a little sore initially. Their body adapted. We created a good environment for positive adaptations. And look at them now. Now, if you look at their calves and they're like, wow, man, we never thought we could build calves like that.
Well, I can relate to that actually, because when I was prepping for my competition in 2019, I had super skinny calves, okay? And Harry sir was coaching me back then. And I mentioned this to him that, I've been training my calves 2 to 3 times a week, and, I don't see any massive growth. And I've always been a football player all my life. I've done a lot of martial arts, but then, it wouldn't just grow. I mean, there's a certain limit to which it would grow, but then it just plateaus right there. So what he made me do was he made me train calves 4 to 5 times a week. Okay. Yeah. With high volume. I mean, some of the days, just for the recovery purpose, he would give me some lower repetition range, but then he would give me high volume calf training. And, by the time I was stepping on stage, I was not, because you're actually seeing your calf every single day, you don't see that growth. But people who are watching me, they did mention to me that, yes, you can, you've actually grown your calves. Similar to, back when my quads were really small. When I came to Pune, I did not have much muscle mass on my legs, okay? So what I started doing was I started going against all of these concepts that is laid down in the books. And I started training my legs multiple times. I would squat multiple times a week. I would, leg press multiple times a week. I would do multiple things. And I've realized that the more frequency, especially for a guy like me who's, busting his ass in the gym, outside the gym for past 12 years, the kind of volume that I am actually doing right now is not enough for me to grow. Maybe just to maintain muscle mass, it is okay. But then if I have to actually go beyond that volume is when my muscles will start responding. Because that is when I would also feel the soreness. Otherwise, my body wouldn't just be sore. And, although it is not the direct determinant of hypertrophy, but then you like that feeling, right? Like I always tell my clients, okay, don't be afraid to experiment something just because somebody told you can't do this. Okay, for example, I remember watching this video by Sunit Sebastian back in 2015 or 14. And he had mentioned in one of his videos that if you do leg extensions, you should not do them because supposedly your the tissues that attach your patella to your tibia and your femur bone will get ruptured if you do that too often, because that is a non-functional movement for your body. Okay, because you don't do that kind of a movement, right? But then when I'm thinking of it, football players, they do their their flexion extension all the time, man. And
and a soccer kick is a leg extension, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's a leg. And that's a leg extension with a lot of force, man. That's a lot of force. When you extend your knee, when you're taking a when you're taking a solid strike of, at the ball, man. And if you want me to touch on the leg extension thing
Yeah, yeah,
very
sure.
quickly,
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
man. So see, most of the issues. So firstly, though, if you know Sunit Sebastian, he's basically Kaizad Kapadia's copycat. Okay, he had this whole exercise graveyard series, which he ended up deleting. Okay, there's a reason he deleted it. First, he copied it from Kaizad Kapadia, the K11 books. Okay, his arguments are Kaizad Kapadia's arguments. So if whatever you see from Sunit Sebastian, I'll give credit to Kaizad Kapadia. Okay, I'm not a big fan of Kaizad Kapadia, but that's Kaizad Kapadia's work. Number one. Number two, that work sucks. Reason being, hey, if you have a problem with the leg extension and you recommend the leg curl, the problems which you are trying to demonstrate in the leg extension, okay, let's say the stress which the ACL experiences, because that's the sound bite, right? Oh, there's so much stress on the ACL, so much stress on the ACL. Then why do you recommend a leg curl? The problems which the leg extension experiences, or rather the problems which the ACL experiences in the leg extension, the PCL experiences in the leg curl. But no, they want to do their leg curl, but okay, fine, we get that. So that's one problem. In fact, I wrote an article, co-authored an article with Vivek back in the day on the whole leg extension thing. But man, think about this, okay? The leg extension, I would argue, is perhaps the most functional way to train your quadriceps, okay? Because you truly just train your quadriceps, okay? The limiting factor in that exercise are, largely speaking, the quadriceps, the knee extensors, okay? In something like a squat, okay, there are so many things which you have to juggle, okay? There are other muscle groups which may fatigue. And then obviously I have to maintain my center of mass or my base of support. Okay, so there's a little balancing act I have to do. Okay, so that's why squats for the most part aren't a great hypertrophy exercise. But at the top of a squat, okay, so let's say when my femur is kind of parallel to the ground, yeah, fine, there's a moment arm to the knee.
Correct.
But as my femur becomes more and more perpendicular to the line of gravity,
the movement becomes zero.
There is no resistance at full extension. There is no moment at full extension.
Right.
And if there's no moment at full extension, your knee extensors are not being challenged at full extension. Now, why do you need to strengthen your knee extensors at full extension? Guess what's going to happen if you stumble tomorrow? If you want to strike a soccer ball, the squats are going to prepare you for that. A knee extension probably will.
Yes.
So you need strength at full extension. You need control at full extension. You need function at full extension. And the knee extension or the leg extension is perhaps the best way to train that.
Right. I do agree with that. All right. So.
Oh, and one more thing, Melvin. We have empirical data which demonstrates that. So a very common argument is, it's not functional. Oh, now we can rely on empirical data because we've got empirical data which compares the squat, the leg press, and the leg extension. And they've taken who? They've taken elderly people. Okay, they made them squat. They took one group, they made them squat. Another group, they made them perform the leg press. Another group, the leg extension. Now, in a leg extension, there's almost no hip extensor work. Okay, so the glutes are kind of not involved. Okay, but still, at the end of the intervention, we see that all three groups, including the leg extension group, improve their sit to stand time.
Right.
Now, that's a functional carryover. That is something which helps you in day-to-day life.
True.
Are you going to take an elderly person, put a bar on their spine without even looking at what their spine looks like and ask them to sit and stand? Or would you be like, okay, maybe we'll just start you off, okay, you can barely stand up, let's have you sit down here and let's slowly see what you are capable of, what you own, what can you tolerate. So we youngsters, we have a bias, okay? And the people we look up to, they're also biased because we can do a lot of things. The reality is most general population clients can't do a lot of things. Most of them can't even get their can't even perform a full shoulder flexion, man. They can't even get their hands overhead. Okay? Arms overhead is a problem. And you want them to do a lat pull down? So, these are some realities. As youngsters, we can get away with a lot of stuff. Most of the people we work with can't.
Okay. So, just now you mentioned about shoulder flexion, right? So I have a question regarding that. So a lot of people, rather the evidence-based heroes, so to speak, they say that you don't really need to train your front delts, okay, via shoulder presses, because when you're doing your incline chest presses, you are training them enough. So what is your take on this? Because I am somebody who does not believe in this particular concept, because I don't think the muscle recruitment is going to be 100% when we are doing an incline press, right? Versus when
Exactly.
we are doing versus when we're doing, let's say, a 100-degree press. Okay. So what is your take
Yeah.
on this?
My take on this is very simple. Okay, that's a popular soundbite. Okay, here's an easy way to a very simple way to kill this entire idea. Stop training your red delts. Stop training your red delts. If you think your front delt is getting a lot of
True.
stimulus, okay, then every time you're performing a row or a pull down, your red delts are contributing there. Okay, they are playing
Yeah.
a part. They are part of the they are part of the resistance fighting team. So then stop training your red delts also. But no, we are on team red delts. We want to do face pulls, we want to do band pull aparts, reverse pec deck. But no, we don't want to train this guy.
Yeah.
Okay, because it gets overstimulated. So this is one of those popular sound bites. Okay, someone said it, and then people just believed it. And man, I'll tell you something. I don't see great front delt development. Most people don't have great front delt development. It's a reality.
Yeah.
So, okay, if there's someone and they have excellent front delt development and all they're doing is, presses and they're like, okay, fine, maybe you don't really need to do something like a front raise. But the reality is most people don't have good front delt development. And a front raise is a great way to target these
Yeah,
guys.
I
Why
mean,
not?
the simple argument to that particular fact is that your anterior deltoids are supposed to do that particular movement, right? This
Yeah.
movement is supposed to be done by that particular. I remember this argument with JC, okay, back when I was in Fritter, okay. So there was one time when he posted something on the Facebook group, and he mentioned that when I'm bored, I create my own exercises, okay, and and this guy was doing a front raise, okay, just by keeping the hands in a supine position, okay, and he was doing a
Huh.
front raise, and he was saying that this is working my lower pecs, my sternocostal fibers, all right. And the argument that he gave me when and there was some smart ass in the group who came and commented on that particular video that you are full of shit, because this is not the function. And he called me to the office room, and he was like, you tell me whether I'm saying something wrong or right. And I was like, you're saying absolutely wrong, and he got offended. I mean, like, I was like, see, when you're lifting your hands up, whether it's in a supine position or whether it's in the prone position, it is simply shoulder extension. And when you're doing that, the major muscle that is being worked is your anterior deltoids, right? But then the argument was, if you switch your mind muscle connection, if you switch your mind muscle connection to your sternocostal fibers, your lower pecs, and that is when you are going to recruit your muscle fibers. And this he learned from Athlete X, supposedly. Okay, Jeff Cavalier. Okay.
Oh, nice.
So
That's a nice way of coming up with your own exercises, huh?
yeah. I mean,
Actually, next taught me, but I came up with it. Now that's what he's saying. Great.
yeah. So, man, I mean, the problem with this industry, I feel, man, I've been practicing in this industry for the last 7 years, okay, and uh, I have to be very honest with everybody who's watching me. I have never been so approving of different ideas, because I used to believe in what I read in the textbooks. Let me tell you, by the way, when I started my fitness education, the first book that I picked up was K11% Trainer Manual. Okay, that was the
That was one
first.
of the first books which even I was exposed to, by the way.
Yeah, so that was my first book which I picked up.
Yeah.
Back then, it made sense because I didn't know shit about, and my problem being, despite coming from a science background, despite coming from a mechanical engineering background, I still believed every single thing that is written in the books, because supposedly this is a new field for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So you are somehow not trained enough to use your knowledge that you have learned in your high school, that you've learned in your engineering colleges, and translate those concepts into your real life scenario. Like you yourself say, a lot of people should start looking at exercise for what it is,
Yeah.
right? It is just a combination of force and movements, different force and movements, different angles sometimes, right? So
Yeah.
this was my initial problem. But when I started actually, yeah, when I actually started translating those concepts, those basic concepts, Newton's law of motion, momentums and torque and all of these things, lever and all of these things, it made a lot of sense to me because, then I was able to understand exercise in a very simple manner compared to complicating a lot of things. What I've seen in the fitness
Yeah.
industry is people, if they have to sound like an expert, what they will do is they will throw jargons. Okay.
Yeah.
And they will
Yeah.
start talking about different muscle groups. Okay, insertion point, origin point, and this muscle, that muscle. That is how they start.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
I know a few like that.
yeah, and this has been a long journey for me where I had to unlearn a lot of things, not just about
Yeah.
fitness for that matter, but a lot of things about business as well. Okay, because when you
Yeah.
start out on something new, you have your own preconceived notions, and you somehow tend to neglect the basic concepts that you already have with you. What people don't realize
Yeah.
these days is that the basic high school level science, okay, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and if you are an engineering student, your engineering textbooks, at least till the first year when you're learning all these subjects, these are like the powerful combo for you to unlock anything going ahead in the fitness industry or any science or any science-based industry for that matter, right?
Yeah.
So I have not seen anybody else other than you highlighting this particular aspect of understanding fitness sciences via basic high school level physics, chemistry, maths, biology, and all of these things, right? So that is why I wanted you to come and talk to my audience because, I keep getting questions like these every day, man. And I have to be very honest with you. I have kind of stopped updating myself on fitness sciences these days because that does not. I don't get time for that. Most of my time goes working, managing my team, and learning more about business and learning more about how to make more money. Because that is my priority
Yeah.
at this point, not about updating my knowledge. That's why I wanted
Yeah.
somebody like you to come and let me tell all my audience here. I do not generally do any kind of live collaboration until and unless I feel that the person is better than me. Okay, I only collaborate with people on my live session who I truly feel can teach me something or are really really better than me when it comes to the basic concepts. Okay, you remember when I came to your place, we had this small argument regarding when you're squatting down you have butt wink and that's why you get these spinal
Yeah.
injuries, right? So
Yeah.
this is something that I got exposed to in the gym. There are some physios and there are some sport level coaches who come to the gym. And when I used to
Yeah.
squat, they would come and point me, okay, you have a butt wing going on, right? And your
Yeah.
spine is going into an unnatural curvature. And this is
Yeah.
eventually going to develop into a spinal injury where you might have disc protrusion or some kind of L3 L4 stuff. Okay, I want to touch upon
Yeah.
this also because a lot of people think that if you're going down when you're squatting down, firstly I do agree with the fact that 80% of the population probably don't need squat. Okay,
Yeah.
and because like we already discussed, there are better ways to train that muscle. Okay,
Yeah.
and a lot of people who squat have this butt wing going on. Okay, so what is your
Yeah.
take on this? Do you think that this is really something that we need to be concerned about?
So again, see, it helps to first peel back the layers and see. I'll begin with uh, some something about the culture of the current fitness industry. We live in a soundbite culture, okay, wherein someone says butt wink, someone says anterior pelvic tilt,
Yeah,
someone says proprioception. Um, and these things, like you said, jargon. These things sound cool. It's new. It's in. A supposed fitness authority wrote about it. Let's make it our own and share it.
yeah,
Let's speak about this. So we have this culture. Unfortunately, what I see in the fitness industry, especially in the evidence-based community, they keep hopping from one soundbite to the next, and that's it. Oh, tell me something, man. Over the last 20 years, what has the evidence-based fitness community truly established over the fundamentals which we know, which are well established since 50 years ago? Now, see, man, I don't want to come across as this guy who's completely bashing the evidence-based community. There's been some important research which has been published, okay? But largely speaking, the bulletproof fundamentals which we understood 50 years ago, they largely apply today. And guess what? We need them now more than ever because we've got a bunch of wannabes, okay, who are like, oh, let's get into the fitness industry. Why? Because we can do a certification and get in. and now we can then start practicing our rubbish on people.
Right.
And that's not practice. That's malpractice. If you don't understand your craft, don't practice it. Um, I can touch on some realities, man. There's some simple things which we do in the gym, which have potential consequences, short term and long term, and we just don't know because you don't know how to see. You do not know what's happening on the inside.
Right.
Okay, we are just exposed to this choreography that, okay, fine, this is how this exercise is supposed to perform. This is how it's supposed to look. This is right, this is wrong. Why? Because my book said so. So the same thing with the butt ring. What is a butt ring? Okay, what is happening? Like, as you're descending in a squat, okay, as you're going down, lower, at a particular point in time, there's a little lumbar flexion which kind of occurs, okay? Okay, there's a little tilt in the pelvis. So what? Why is that a problem? Okay, what is it? It's like the whole knees over toe thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like okay. Let's say this is the issue. Okay, knees still here is fine, but as soon as they cross the toes, then it becomes a problem. So what? You can go down, but as soon as a little lumbar flexion occurs, that also from the outside, you don't know what's happening on the inside. You're getting a very superficial picture. Maybe that lumbar flexion started a few degrees earlier, but you couldn't see it because you're looking at it from the outside.
Correct.
And that all of a sudden becomes a problem. How do you think we take a dump, man? Okay, man. And that's a better way, a more evidence-based way of taking a dump.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And what you think if you're going to tell a guy who's very heavy because he carries all this upper body mass that, oh, you can't sit and take a dump now because you have a butt wing? Wow. I'm not saying that's not problematic. It can potentially be problematic for a particular person, but it's not universally problematic. Okay. If you're going to say that this is a problem, why is it a problem? And I've seen the arguments for why it is a problem, and those arguments suck. Okay, you can't, and people are trying to make people stop that. Back in the days, it was knees over toe. Now it's the whole butt wing thing. Okay, over time they'll grow out of the butt wing. They'll come up with something else. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with the butt wing. Okay, you're going to find yourself butt winking all the time. If you play a sport, okay, if you wrestle, do some jiu-jitsu, if you're a wicket keeper, man, you're going to be in butt wing city all the time. So might as well get better at it.
So in fact, if somebody sees me sitting right now, I have a very prominent butt wing, right? So
yeah.
So Aman, do you think that a lot of information is generalized rather than customizing it according to the population that we're talking about?
Exactly. That now we're talking. Okay, people need to understand that evidence-based guidelines are simply guidelines. Okay. They're a mean of all the data which we've collected. Okay, that doesn't mean the fundamentals do not. We disregard the fundamentals. I can come up with an exercise right now. If you truly understand how force and exercise works, you can come up with your own exercises.
Correct.
I do not need a study to first compare that exercise to the squat to say that, okay, in this particular scenario, that exercise is better than the squat. I can do a mechanical analysis and show you some mechanical realities right away. Okay, then fine. When you do generate funds to conduct that study, conduct it. Maybe you learn something new, something I didn't think about. Cool. But you can't dismiss something like that. Okay, and generalizations are the problem, man. This is the biggest problem with the evidence-based fitness industry. Okay,
right.
What is the point of being scientific, man? What is the point of studying the science when at the end of the day, all you're going to say is that all that matters are calories or all that matters is volume? Okay, that's not being evidence-based. That's not being scientific. That's just being plain lazy. Okay,
right.
You just found an evidence-based guru. Okay, you like what they share. They seem scientific, so you just regurgitate everything they say. That's what our industry does, and they're very happy because why? Brad Schoenfeld said it. Menno said it. Mike Israetel said it. Brett Contreras said it. Oh man, Brett Contreras has a PhD. So fucking what, man? So what?
And I think Mike
Israetel,
now just that you mentioned about Mike Israetel, I think he came up with the concept of maximum recoverable volume, uh,
My
and
God.
yeah, and I was like, maximum recoverable volume for whom? First question. For you, for me, for Mike Israel, for Menno, for whom? Because every
Yeah,
human being has a different recovering capacity, first of all. And what if
yeah,
my maximum. Chalo, let's for a moment agree to that fact that, let's say, for my hamstrings, let's say a weekly volume of 13 sets per week is my maximum recoverable volume. All right? Established, written on a piece of paper. But what if I'm not sleeping? But what if I'm not having
yeah,
enough protein? Right? So I think to all the viewers out here, what we really want you to understand is, do not take information on its face value. That is very important to understand. Okay. Some kind of critical analysis, critical thinking needs to happen, because what you would see generally in the fitness industry or the evidence based community, all these guys who we mentioned, Lane Norton or Brad Schoenfeld or all these guys, you go up to them with an argument, they would simply give you a research link. See, because this study says this, see, because that study says this. Okay, and this is what everybody's been practicing like a puppet without even thinking of what they are doing. Okay, for
yeah.
example, now for most people, like I believe you had posted this back in Feb or something in your Facebook, that for most people, squat is a waste of time, right? For their hypertrophic needs and their fat
I'll
loss.
just state it clearly, because then people take me out of context. For most people's goals, the squat, deadlift, and bench press, as they are traditionally performed,
Yeah,
are terrible exercises. I
yeah,
still maintain that today. By
yes.
the way, that's an
So
open debate challenge.
correct, correct. So, which means you did not disregard doing those exercises, but the traditional style of performing them is something that is
Yeah,
not useful for everybody. For example, if I'm
yeah,
doing a squat with a dumbbell, okay,
yeah,
that might have similar effects on my lower body musculature compared
yeah,
to doing a barbell back squat. But then the only challenge
yeah,
is, if I'm putting up a barbell on my back, then my center of gravity is going to slightly change because my body is going to incline ahead. Okay. Now, a lot of people who say that you do not need shoulder presses, I have a very classic argument for that. Okay. Now, I want you to tell me if my thought process is right or wrong. When you think of this shoulder flexion, or the anterior shoulder press of as a daily movement in your life, it could be as simple as picking up a suitcase from the ground and keeping it over a shelf. As simple as
yeah,
that. I'm using my anterior deltoid
yeah,
flexion, right? Now, when I'm
yeah,
standing and performing that particular exercise, the moment my hand goes up and the moment my
yeah.
overall height increases, my center of gravity will slightly shift up. Correct?
Yes,
So doesn't it make sense to perform that exercise then? Because it is helping you train your body better at a slightly changed center of gravity, which means when you're doing these functional
yeah,
movements at home, picking up a suitcase and keeping it up, you are going to be performing better at them better at lifting heavier weights and keeping it up, right? Rather than
yeah,
just doing it seated, or the kind of argument that people come up. So what I'm trying to highlight here is, people, they take information on its face value, and they do not critically
yeah,
think. And I think the credit should go to you, that you have compelled people to think critically rather than just following the book.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
And that is something I truly want to give you the credit for. Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much, man. There are two things which I want to very quickly touch on. See, first, I want to refine Mike Israel's point a little bit. Some of the things which we touched on, he's touched on as well. Okay. So, see, Mike Israel gets a lot of things wrong, like a lot of things. And fundamentally, Lyle McDonald put it best. Mike Israel is a politician. He creates the illusion that he knows a lot, but he doesn't. Okay. Um, that thing which he did with dumbbells and resistance bands, man, he got in the whole of Renaissance periodization to take my videos down on YouTube. Okay. So whatever, it's cool, it's whatever. But um, he accepted my debate challenge and backed out. Okay, so cool.
Yeah, I remember that.
But that the whole MRV thing that has problems, and maybe you can do a live session and touch on the actual issues, because people have kind of heckled him with regards to MRV, and he's kind of let's say polished his MRV model a little bit. So he's touched on a few things which we touched on. So cool, we'll give him credit where credit is due. but he gets a lot of stuff wrong. That doesn't mean you have to believe him because he has a PhD and all of that. Um, then you touched on the overhead press, and yeah, it makes sense. Okay, if in day-to-day life you find yourself lifting weights and moving them you moving them up. Okay, your center of mass obviously shifts up with a heavier load. So yeah, you may want to familiarize yourself with those sort of movements and explore those movements by training in the gym. That's why the gym is a great place. You can train
Yeah.
for everything. Um, but there's also something to think about here. Do we really need to replicate movements which we do in day-to-day life to become better at the movements which we do in day-to-day life?
Correct.
That's a very important consideration, because if that was the case, then we wouldn't really become good at many things without first exploring them in the gym. There are a lot of things which we just became good at, right?
Yeah.
Before we stepped foot in the gym. For example, we just started playing football and all of a sudden we became kind of good at it. We figured it out. Obviously, we were experiencing forces. We made some good adaptations, luckily. Along the way, we picked up maybe a few niggles and injuries. But we did become better at a lot of things. A baby did learn how to finally stand up without having to squat in the womb, man.
Yeah.
So, so there's a different sort of an angle which is worth exploring as well. So a practice which I love is like, as soon as I stumble across a thought, or as soon as I get a lot of evidence to support my stance, I start finding people who disagree with my stance. That's why I encourage debate. For example, the low carb versus the high carb movement. So I have a lot of material which touches on why the carbohydrate insulin hypothesis of obesity, as it's traditionally propagated by Kaizad Kapadia, Gary Taubes, etc., Lustig and colleagues. Why that's a problem.
Yeah.
But I've only done that after I've studied their work first. Because if you want to really challenge someone's argument, you must understand their argument well. Because it's happened to me way too many times. I've been like, okay, here's my collection of studies. This is what I believe. And I'm out there, okay, and I'm trying to heckle my professors. And my professors have given me a bamboo. I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't think about that. So one of the things which I've really learned, okay, from my seniors is you need to be really well prepared. And you need to really just play devil's advocate. Like I did with the whole modern medicine versus the Ayurveda debate. I was like, cool. Aman Duggal wanted me to be on evidence-based on the evidence-based medicine team. But Abby Phillips was struggling to find an opponent. So I'm like, cool, man, just for the heck of it, let me explore that side. Let's see what we have there. Okay, that's when you detach your emotions from your stance, and you're like, I'm open to everything. Okay, let's see what those guys have to say. But does that make sense? I don't know, maybe that doesn't make sense, but that does make sense. That's when you truly become a student. Unfortunately, what happens, is we become emotionally attached to our stance. And once we become emotionally attached, maybe we had an argument, maybe we want to prove that guy wrong. That's when it becomes very difficult for us to let go of our biases. I've been wrong all the time, man. I may look back at some of the things I say 5 years down the line. I'll be like, man, there was so much which I didn't consider. And that's okay. I'm ready to accept that. But a lot of people aren't. And most of those people are part of the evidence-based community.
Right. And like you rightly said, I think, a true student is not somebody who learns everything that is presented to him. But I think a true student is somebody who questions everything that is presented to him. Right.
Yeah.
And that is one of the major, ideologies that I tell my coaches to follow. Because even if the information is right, how do you know if that is right? You have to start questioning things. Unless and until you don't question, you will not get deeper and deeper into the subject. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for a second, we can conclude that. See, like I always say, okay, coaching is 80% psychology and 20% science. Okay, there is no much science involved in coaching if you have to just lose fat and gain muscle. Okay, it's very clear. Okay, but then when you are getting into the health aspect of people, okay, for example, I deal with a lot of clients who have PCOS, who have diabetes and cholesterol issues and hypertension, all of these things. Okay, when I have to deal with these clients, I have to actually go back, open the textbook and read about these things and read about what kind of nutritional modifications can improve or rather help them maintain their lifestyle better. Okay, it is
Yeah.
not just about the game of calories in versus calories out there, because you're dealing with a different
Yeah.
case altogether. There are some hormonal imbalance in the body happening, right? And I think you and Aman Bindra, you had a discussion recently on the nutrition pyramid, right?
Yeah.
And you guys mentioned that it is way too generalized for a lot of people. Because if now my argument to that is, I do agree with your stance on that. I do agree with Aman Bindra's stance on that. So micros were placed after macros, okay? But my argument is, if micros are not in my body, will the macros be actually assimilated properly in my body? Then in that case, shouldn't micros be prioritized before macros? So these kind of questions, right? These are, so a lot of new students or new coaches who are coming into the industry, all they have done, all they think that they need to do is ISSA or Nesta for that matter, right? And they come
Yeah.
with. Just yesterday, I took an interview. So this week is all about has been all about me taking interviews for new recruitments in the company. Okay, and I
Yeah.
have interviewed almost 5 people this week, and one of them was a doctor who's also a certified nutritionist. Now, surprisingly, when I was interviewing this person, I felt that this person is making more sense because, first of all, he understands health, and he also understands how nutrition has an implication on health. Okay, most coaches in the industry, they just think that nutrition is all about calories and protein and carbohydrates and some fiber and fat. You know, you
Yeah.
cannot consume saturated fats beyond a certain limit. This is what a lot of people just know, and this is the entire the collection that they come with before they begin coaching somebody. But the deeper and deeper
Yeah.
you get into the coaching industry, right? For example, the first 2 3 years, coaching for me was simple. I mean, I was like coaching, I was transforming people like this, 3 months and tuck, six-pack abs, and everybody's gone, everybody's happy, Melvin is a superhero. But then the moment I
Yeah.
started getting clients who have complications, some people do have mental problems with eating a certain food item, or some people do have mental problems looking at carbohydrates. So it is all about understanding the psychology of that particular client, right?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, the way people pursue education needs to change from just reading textbook and absorbing the knowledge versus reading everything and questioning it and going deeper into the subject and reading about it more. I think that is what sets somebody apart from just being a bookish worm.
That's true, man. And see, well, when in a lot of other disciplines like medicine, okay, um, the formal path is the right path. Okay, like you said, you interviewed this doctor and you're pretty impressed by what he had to say. Oh, for obvious reasons, a doctor at minimum, okay, has invested 5 years, bare minimum of 5 years into his education. The guy has an MBBS, okay, and man, you think MBBS is a joke? No, it's not, man. It's difficult. Um, and which doctor in today's time finishes at an MBBS? कोई MBBS को भाव नहीं देता है. Okay, they do the MBBS. They'll maybe intern for a bit, then they'll do their MD, then they'll specialize. They'll probably invest about 10 years into their education before they actually start making money. And they truly understand the human body, physiology, the way a doctor understands. And it's way. And those are some realities which we as fitness professionals cannot ignore. I tell a lot of people, man, we are doctors in many ways because we are responsible for two things. We are responsible for strategically applying force upon tissue. Okay, that force has consequences. That force is invasive. It determines the future of this guy over here, your joint health and whatnot. Okay, how you strategically apply force. So why I shouldn't even say strategically apply. Most people don't have any idea what they're doing when they're exercising. They just do this exercise. Man, you know what's happening on the inside. Get that inside view, please.
Right.
Okay. And then you're asking people to consume food or maybe not consume food because that's what we are obsessed with, right? Consuming less, six-pack abs, shredded glutes, that's the era we live in. We have to be very careful, man. And if you don't understand what's happening, if you don't understand what we are putting inside our clients, what our clients are actually being subjected to, and then the response which is generated in the body to that particular stimulus, we are doing a disservice. That is not practice. That is malpractice. Okay, people get away with a lot, man, in our industry. And if you know, and that's the benefit of working with a certain demographic. You work with people between the ages of between the 18 to 40 age group. Okay, you work with this. You can get away with a lot of stupid things because the
Right.
body is trying to deal with a lot of stress. And then every once in a while, someone will come along and they'll have a lot of problems. Okay, because maybe that person just got off their couch, man. They played PlayStation for the last 10 years and they were like, okay, let's squat now. And all of a sudden things go wrong. And then you're like, oh, but I have all these other transformations. It's the client's fault, not mine. Okay, that's the problem. People become gods and they don't want to accept responsibility, man. They do not want to accept responsibility for a disservice. And the best part is they end up messing themselves up.
Yeah.
So many people, they practice their rubbish not only on their clients, but on themselves also. And they mess themselves up. Then they get surgery upon surgery upon surgery. And they're like, no, man, I had some genetic limitation. It's not because of what the stupidity I was doing in the gym. So yeah, people like to dismiss doctors, no? There's this popular soundbite in the fitness industry that, oh, doctors say eat less protein. Doctor ko kuch bhi nahi aata hai. Don't ask doctors for nutrition advice. Man, just because a doctor perhaps isn't aware of, okay, the current best practices as far as protein intake is concerned, you're just going to dismiss a doctor's advice. Man, to this very day, my mom and dad teach me things which blow my mind. Okay, a lot of times, if there's something which I am struggling with, I go to my mom and dad and I ask them. And to this very day, they teach me things which blow my mind. I'm like, oh man, I'm so stupid. I have to go open that textbook again.
Yeah. I mean,
How
it's
could I
the,
miss something
as
as
the saying
obvious as
goes,
that?
right? The more you learn, the less you know.
Yeah. And what you think the doctors who've accumulated 25, 30 years of experience? Oh, they don't know about protein, so they don't know anything. So we're not going to listen to them, man. Come on, man. A doctor understands the human body way better than most of you will ever do. Maybe a lifetime's worth of self study, self exploration will never help you learn the human body as well as a doctor does because it's tough, man. MBBS and MD from a good college, it's not easy, man.
Right. All right. So, Aman, I think I'll ask you one last question. And this is
Yeah,
about range of motion. Okay.
yeah.
So, I've seen this popular quote, if the range isn't complete, the rep doesn't count.
Kaisa Kapad, yeah.
Okay.
I know that.
So,
Yeah.
so what is your thought on that? Because I have personally experienced this. Okay. Now, I have a problem with my right shoulder. So, if I'm doing a bench press, I can't really go all the way down because that will just blow me out.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I think recently Brad Schoenfeld also came up with some conclusion on this particular aspect, that full range of motion versus partial range of motion, something. But then, yeah, I really want to touch upon this particular aspect of, the range of motion. Is a complete range of motion applicable for everybody who's training in the gym?
First, we have to define what a complete range of motion is. Melvin, so we've kind of we used to not train together, but I've seen you actually.
Yeah.
Now, someone like me, I got longish arms
Yeah.
and I don't have a pretty thick rib cage. Okay, my chest, I have okayish development. So for me, full range of motion may be my humerus coming all the way down here.
Right.
For you, full range of motion may be here. For some of my heavyweight powerlifters, their full range of motion is only till here. Man, full range of motion is not determined by some arbitrary point like, oh, bar touching your chest. That's so childish, man. It is one of the most childish things I've ever heard. Man, the bar touching your chest, the bar will travel a different distance for different people. Okay? And for some people, that full range of motion may be acceptable. For most people, it isn't. Okay? The best way you can think about it is take a new client and ask them to just get there, just do this. Are they achieving full range of motion? Oh no. Oh, so here's what we'll do. We'll put a bar in their hands and then ask them to do that. You just stretch them, push them into full range of motion. Why? For what? And what are the potential long-term consequences of doing something like that? No, shoulder issues are just dismissed. No, अरे हो जाता है, अरे चलता है, थोड़ा बहुत shoulder का problem हो जाता है. There's a reason of shoulder का problem क्यों शुरू हुआ. Okay. So, firstly, full range of motion as it's currently prescribed is malpractice. Okay. If the range isn't complete, the rev doesn't count. That is a stupid quote and that is malpractice. Okay. People who graduated from the KLN Fitness Academy, if you guys believe in that quote, you guys do not understand what range of motion is. You guys do not respect joint structure and function. And you guys, if you're not in trouble now, consider yourself lucky, okay, and hope you won't be in trouble tomorrow. But you are practicing, or rather malpracticing, with your clients. Stop doing what you're doing if that's what you believe. Okay, that's not right. Your clients deserve better. Kaizat Kapadia, just go away, man. Stop what you're doing already. Number one. Number two, let's talk about the evidence-based community. You think they understand what full range of motion and partial range of motion is? What? They have these arbitrary standards as well. When they conduct these studies, they again use these stupid standards. So they'll compare two ranges. They'll compare a full range and a partial range. Which full range and which partial range? Again, you're just comparing two ranges in a possibility of ranges in that particular movement. Why? Okay. And again, how are you going to compare full range of motion versus partial range of motion if you do not understand the mechanical realities of what's actually happening, what sort of force you're experiencing in that full range at that particular position where you kind of maybe stop at or don't stop at. So full range of motion is something I've seen everyone struggle with and everyone get wrong. Okay, the evidence-based community at least has a slightly more refined understanding. But when they speak about full range versus partial range, I recently heard Lane Norton speak about it. Man, that was one of the most stupid videos I've ever seen. Okay, he's trying to pick fights with that Joel Seedman. He wants Joel Seedman to debate him.
Okay.
So he keeps picking on Joel Seedman. Lane Norton is basically an evidence-based bully who picks on weaklings. Okay, if Lane truly wants a challenge, come and debate me. Simple, man. Why are you picking on Joel Seedman? Joel Seedman is wrong. Lane Norton is also wrong. Lane doesn't understand full range of motion. And Joel also doesn't understand full range of motion. And then everyone's like, oh, we are on team Lane. Man, Lane's understanding of exercise and even nutrition, largely speaking, is childish, man. So, yeah, that's the problem. That full range of motion in most cases.
Define that? For a layman, how do we really define that? Okay. Let's say I don't know anything about fitness science. This is the first time I'm stepping into the gym. So how do we define whether what kind of range of motion is good for me?
You can test that. Okay. Before you subject a client to a particular force, you can kind of assess. Okay, what do they own? What do they have? Okay, what does this client have? Okay, you can be like, okay, client, come here, do this, and the client stops you. Like, you can't go higher than this. Okay, let me stretch you. No, don't stretch that client. Respect that. Okay, that's where this client is. Maybe when they do a lat pull down kind of a situation, maybe this is their lat pull down. This is the reality.
Okay.
Maybe if they're here, don't even get them on a bench. Don't even expose them to gravity. Just ask them to come all the way back while they're standing up. Okay, that's where this guy can kind of go to. Okay, he's cool. Maybe he'll stop here. Why do we want to explore this range when I'm not entirely sure whether this client even owns that range? Okay, this is what this client has right now. This is what he owns. This is what he can tolerate. Let's respect that limitation, and that will change for different people. It's not very difficult. Like, if you just kind of stop thinking about what the traditional book says or your evidence-based guru says, you can figure these things out yourself. It's not very difficult. A lot of times I'm like, someone's like, oh, I want to learn how to squat. I'm like, okay, let's kind of see how you sit down and stand up, buddy. There was a chair. There are problems, buddy. Maybe before we even consider loading a squat for you, maybe we need to take a few steps back, right? So, yeah, those are some things which you can do. It's not very difficult to figure this out. That's the thing. People think it's difficult. People think I have some advanced knowledge. No, I don't, man. I'm
Yeah,
like, wait,
just basics. Yeah, I think
it's just basic.
understanding human body is a lot about observation, right?
Yeah,
And observation is how science comes into picture.
yeah.
So I think it should start with observing. So a follow-up question to that, Aman. Okay. Now let's say, like you mentioned, a person has a limited range of motion, and while performing a shoulder flexion, he can only come up to 90 degree. All right.
Yeah.
So should that person be investing any sort of time and money in fixing that, or is it okay for him to live like that?
It depends on why they have that limitation.
Okay.
Okay. It depends on why. So as soon as you find a limitation, you have to first ask yourself why. Okay. Maybe maybe the nervous system isn't comfortable in that person exploring that range of motion. Maybe it's a function of previous trauma. Okay. Maybe the body does not trust that person enough to explore that range of motion. So maybe it's a neural thing. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's a mechanical thing. Okay. For example, if I try and get this joint in this position, but there's something solid which is making contact, I'm not going to try and force it into that position, right? A lot of people have anatomical structures. You may have heard of type 3 acromion. Okay, that comes in the way. Okay, there are osteophyte developments. A lot of times, people, because of what they've been doing or they've been misusing their anatomy. Okay,
You mean
there are more
some kind of protrusion
a
happening in that
protrusion.
region?
Okay, yeah, bone growth, bone spurs.
Yeah.
These things happen. They may not have been present when that person was 18 years old. So that client will come to you and be like, oh, but back when I was 18, I could do this. Now I can't. That's because the skeleton which you had at 18 is not the same skeleton which you have at 36 years old. You're 18 then, you had a different skeleton. You're 36 now, you may have a different skeleton. You may have some bone spurs, some bone development which you didn't have in the past. I'll give you a practical, something which has happened with me. So when I play football, I have to wear a toe separator. Reason being, for many years, I have a slightly wideish foot, and you know how football cleats are, right? Narrow
Very narrow
at the
towards the
top.
front.
Okay. So my feet have basically been locked up like this for hours at a stretch. And you know, it was cool, no, back in our day to wear football shoes everywhere. So I used to wear the flats everywhere. So I'd basically be like this all the time. What ended up happening was because there was there was contact between these two toes. Okay, my last two toes. Because of this frequent contact and this frequent force dynamic here, I started developing some bone growth.
Okay.
Okay. And now, if I don't wear my toe separator, I have severe pain because these two toes, it's not just they that are making contact with each other. My toe is now different. This guy has a little bony development which really rubs against this guy. I've got skin which comes off. And if I don't wear my toe separator, that bone development is only going to become worse and worse.
Okay.
Okay. So when force makes contact with a bone, the body then has to decide, okay, is this force large enough to where I have to make an adaptation? In my case, it's an undesirable adaptation, but it is a function of force.
Right.
So, okay. And now I can't sit and think like, oh, but 18 years ago, I didn't feel this because 18 years ago, my toes are not like that. My toes are healthy. Now they're not. They're different. So I have to respect that.
I think that makes sense. And over the years, as you are exposed to a lot of force, I think your skeletal structure also changes because of the way you've been, experiencing such forces, right? So yeah, I think that
your entire skeleton gets remodeled, man. I believe over a span of 10 years, the entire skeleton gets remodeled.
Exactly.
Okay. So you can do good things and not so good things. Okay. That's the reason why, someone who's always standing upright, as they age, okay, their gravity is a reality.
Yeah.
Okay. They start getting a little sloppy with their posture. Oh, but correcting posture is not evidence based, no, Melvin. So we can't we can't think about that, okay? Because now the popular soundbite in the evidence-based community is that correcting posture is a waste of time. Just relax, chill, enjoy yourself, okay? People just want to pick a side. That's the biggest problem. People just want to pick a side. I also look at some of these posture correction specialists. And I'm like, man, what is this guy saying? Okay, it sounds silly. But then I'm like, oh, that guy seems to make sense. Let me listen to him. Maybe there's something which I can learn from him.
So I remember when I used to squat, and this person would come and tell me that, okay, you have a butt wing happening. So what you need to do is, when you're squat, when you're standing upright with the bar, you need to do a posterior pelvic tilt, and then you need to go down. But when I started doing that, I was like, I can't squat with that, because my entire mechanics have changed now, right?
Yeah.
So even if I have an anterior pelvic tilt as a function of whatever force I was exposed to for so many years, suddenly when I'm performing that posterior pelvic tilt, aligning my pelvis into that particular in that particular fashion, it becomes way more difficult for me to squat down, because now my lumbar spine is not allowing me to move down, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so many things, man. I mean,
These are, yeah, we can keep speaking about this ad nauseum, man. It's a problem, okay? So butt wing is a problem at the bottom, but oh, now this guy is telling you, oh, you start with a little kind of a butt wing situation, okay? It's like, oh man, come on, grow up, man. The fitness industry needs to grow up. Our problem is we have people who we look up to who do not understand what we want to learn. Okay, if they do not understand, and we were these certifying bodies which are offering us what 3-month courses, all the best trying to learn everything in 3 months. I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I've got all the certifications in the world. You got all the certifications in the world, and we are still learning, man. We are still students. We know that, okay, man, those things which we learned back then, we kind of have to unlearn them. There's so many times to this very day where I get caught saying compound and isolation, and then I have to slap myself and say, no, man, because I've just said it so many times that it's a habit now. So I'm like, stop, man. There's a little unlearning process which has to happen, and that's the most frustrating part, because I wish someone would. I wish that the time and effort which I invested and the trust which I invested to these educational bodies, they should have done a better job, right?
yeah.
And my education's been all over the place, man. It's been like, oh, this, yo, and then I'm like, wait a second, man. I need to start trusting myself. I need to go explore the basics and really try and understand this thing for what it truly is.
Education at school level and college level was much better, man. At least it was unified all throughout.
It was unified, well established, man. You're in the fitness industry, someone's going to start a new course tomorrow, and that's going to become the evidence-based course.
Now, I was going to start my own course, but then I thought, I mean, let me hold that for a while, because everybody is doing that, and I want to come up with something different. That's why I asked you to give me that book, Biochemistry by Satyanarayana. Because so many things, I want to actually build a course which nobody teaches about, because everybody is like, okay, volume, intensity, frequency, khatam. Exercise science wahan pe khatam ho gaya. Exercise progressions ho gaya, single progression, double progression, triple progression, khatam. Nutrition mein ho gaya, calories and deficit and insulin and GH and all of this in khatam. This is all that they learn in that 3 months, and they claim that they know everything about human body in and out. And I'm telling you, in my 7 years of coaching experience, I have learned way more just dealing with my clients and speaking to them and making modifications, doing hit and trial, rather than learning from books.
Yeah.
And I think that's real education.
That is real education, man. Coaching, like you said, you put a percentage on psychology, but it is so much of coaching is our ability to communicate and truly understand what the client is trying to convey to us. Right. We need to be on the same frequency as them and really understand them, and then offer them the right advice. And like you said about the course, man, see, due to some unfortunate circumstances, I was not able to launch my course in 2018. I'm grateful that I got some time to explore the fundamentals again, because, man, my syllabus has changed so much, and I'm like, wow, man, thank goodness it didn't launch in 2018, because I look at that syllabus, and it's that typical evidence-based syllabus. Because at that time, I had my evidence-based heroes. I invited them to lecture for me. And now I'm like, wait a second, man. I need to start trusting myself here because there are a lot of things which I understand which these evidence-based guys don't understand or they pretend to understand. They have no idea what they're speaking about. Linguistic gymnastics, man, and research and sharing research can create the illusion that you know a lot more than you actually do.
Correct. Correct. Good, Aman. So I think this was very insightful for me. Melvin has to be appreciated for being honest about on hit and trial methods and learning real time from them. Yes, that's the
Hey man, I have to give you, I have to give you props, man. Okay, there are very few people in this industry I'd say are real. Okay, I've met you in person, and man, you're you're real. Okay, the person I met, the person who we chilled over here, I think for good 3 4 hours, and we had a blast here. Is the same person I'm speaking to now. Is the same person I see on social media, and there's something to be said about that, man. Because social media is basically, the social media is like is a pretentious community, and we really need more people to kind of show the reality of this industry, man. There are very few people who are truly authentic. And I get it, okay. We have to create an authoritative persona that matters, okay. But very few people are truly authentic, and you're most certainly one of them.
Thanks, man. I mean,
I respect you for that.
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And I'm very open about the fact these days that even to my coaches, just day before yesterday, I think somebody was asking me something, and I was like, you should go to Aman Duggal or Aman Bindra because they can answer this question better than me. Because I am very open about this fact. In the last 2 years, I have not gotten a chance to brush up my knowledge or read anything new. Firstly, because I've stopped trusting knowledge material for its face value, and secondly, I don't get the time to do it. So even to this day, my total client intake for a month is just 5 because I don't have the time to coach clients. So all the leads that I
Yeah,
get, I either pass it to my team or I just coach them for free. I just guide them on WhatsApp, but I don't charge them because I don't really get the time. So yeah, so I have to be honest where I have to be honest, and to be very honest, I have to brush up a lot of things on my end. And all right.
yeah,
So Aman, there are so many questions, but I think let's do a separate live and answer questions. I think it's already late.
yeah. That's cool. I'm good with that. Is there any way you can save these questions, bro? I
Um,
don't think so, right?
you can't save the questions. I
Maybe
mean, when we end the
maybe,
session.
maybe they maybe they can send them, email them or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'll just do one thing, guys. Do one thing. We have to end this session right now because it's already late, and I have to start my day early. So everybody who's asked a question and we could not respond, please DM these questions to me or Aman. We'll plan a live session again and we'll answer all these questions together. Okay. I think there are some really smart
Yeah,
questions here. So let's take them on a different session because this would require another hour of talking. So let's do that sometime later.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. That sounds good. That sounds like a plan.
Okay. So Aman, thank you so much for doing this with me. Let's
All
do
right,
it
man.
again. And
Hey,
and
thank
by
you
the
so
way,
much.
Rishabh and me were planning to come to your place this weekend.
Come anytime, man.
Yeah.
Why wait? Come anytime. Come
Yeah.
tomorrow.
So Rishabh was like, "Chalo Melvin चाय पीते हैं." मैं बोला नहीं चल अमन से मिलते हैं.
Come no. Now Yash is also here. He's also chilling here for a bit. So come over.
चलेगा. I'll catch up with you soon then.
Okay. See you soon, Melvin. Thank you
See
so
you soon.
much. Have a good night.
Good night, Aman. Take care. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.